So I think, first of all, if you don't play, it's very difficult for you to make money in this industry the way that it is right now. You gotta go out and play. Sell your CD, sell your music that way.
Rhonda, I had the chance for the sessions of being on a panel with you and to hear you speak about just the industry itself, and your role and responsibility has been fantastic. I've heard you perform on stage with Prince. You really have set a standard for musicians in general, not only saying open up the doors for females, which is fantastic. So what you've done is on the cutting edge and fantastic. So I want to start from the beginning. Where did music reach you, and how did you get involved with music?
You know, I had a very musical family. I am the youngest of 4 siblings.
Yeah.
I have older sister, who's the oldest, my older brother, and then I have another brother who's close to me in age. All of them were playing music, and I was the youngest, so it was always in the house. My mother was always playing great singers, Billie Holiday, Ella Fitzgerald. My mother loved jazz, she loved Ray Brown, she loved Oscar Peterson, all of these great, you know, killer jazz guys.
Yeah.
So it was always there, but it was environment, Dom, completely. Because I think that if that wasn't the case, I probably wouldn't have done it. But it was completely environment. It was around me all the time. I came home to it. My brothers and sisters were into it. But the thing that changed it is my oldest brother still plays trombone. So that wasn't really what I wanted to do. My oldest sister played clarinet. So I didn't want to do that either. So I have a brother who's about 15 months older than me. We were very competitive at the time, maybe around 10 or 11 years old. And he brought a bass home one day from school in the case. And he opened it and then he closed the case and he looked at me and he said, "Don't touch it." So that's how it started. It was done from then.
Who did you start listening to in the early ages?
Ooh, I went definitely towards bass players. You know, I grew up a lot of my childhood in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, which is a really great place. They
Fantastic
were
music.
so supportive at that time for fusion, jazz. They were supporting original music really a lot. In the clubs, in the bars, you could go down and you could play in places and see absolutely great musicians. So there was always a great flux of musicians coming through there and things. Jaco Pastorius was a great influence at that time.
Beautiful.
It was very easy to hear a lot of that. Got influenced early with Stanley Clarke. I love Stanley Clarke. I think my brother bought me Rocks, Pebbles, and Sand when I was 12, I think, and I think I just kept playing it over and over and over until I tried to learn everything from it, you know, try to figure out those licks he was doing. What is that, you know? And rock guys, too, you know, from Geddy Lee to, you know, who was playing with Hendrix, who's with Led Zeppelin, Chris Squire.
What a wide variety.
Just a wide variety of everything, yeah.
So were you taking lessons at that time? Did you study it? Did you find a teacher?
When I first started, it was just by ear, and which was a great training, I think, for anybody, because, you know, back then we did the records over and over, do that tape over and over and over, and get it stuck in the machine and have to pull it out and wind it back up again. But it was just a constant thing, and it was a great ear training, because not only do you learn the parts, you memorize it, and it's what I tell my students too. It becomes a part of you when you embody the feel, when you start to understand the feel of something, when you've done it a lot of times, and maybe if it's something that didn't come naturally to you before. So I think that was a great ear training. Later I got teachers, but I think other than that, it was pretty much self-taught, watching people.
So where did professional playing, where all of a sudden now you were out gigging, where did that start?
Late high school, early junior college. When I was still trying to figure out what I was doing, I was playing a little bit more jazz then, actually. So I was playing jazz clubs at night, starting to do those types of things. Then I got into an all-girls band. There was an R&B band, and we were quite popular at the time, and I just loved it. We started playing around. I started getting paid regularly, so I was like, wow, you know. So I thought that was really cool. That was kind of the beginning of what I could potentially see that, you know, I could do.
So the taste of being paid and playing, was that the beginning of you starting to focus now on making this a career?
You know, I think I always wanted to make it a career. Music for me, and I think for a lot of other people, I don't think that people don't give music enough credit these days and past days, because it has been a savior for a lot of people. I know it's been a savior for me. It saved me in a lot of situations. It saved some people that I know, you know, diverted our attentions once we were younger to stay out of trouble and do music, which is math, which is all of these things together. It makes you think, it makes you problem solve, it makes you do a lot of things, it makes you be creative. So I think it saved me a lot when I was young. So I think it was something that I always wanted to do, because I really didn't have much interest in anything else at that age. Now I do, but then it was different.
So you kept on performing. So how did some of the breaks happen? Like how'd you get involved with Prince? You were there for 10 years.
Yeah. Actually, I think it was more of a span of 13. I started with him in 1996.
Nice.
And we had some mutual separations along the way in our relationship. But the last time I worked with him was 2009, when he did the 3 shows together in LA on the same night, which was absolutely crazy. So it's been about a span of that. And that is, again, what I was telling people yesterday, the importance of the NAMM show. When I first got those connections, it's when I went to a NAMM show. And I'm trying to remember if it was Anaheim or if it was Anaheim. It was Anaheim, my very first NAMM show. I was representing Godin guitars.
Yes.
With one of my best friends,
From
Kat
Canada,
Dyson.
right? Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
We went up there as a duo. And back then, not that it was ages ago, but back then there weren't that many female players around. If they were there, we kind of knew who they were. You knew who the community was. So at that time, we met up with Sheila E. And this was like, I don't know, 1996, maybe 95, 1996, I think. And Sheila E. was at the show. You know, Sheila E., wow, she's like the premier female.
She's bigger than life, yeah.
Incredible, you know. So we gravitated to her. She gravitated to us. She was really cool. We had a great time. We ended up going to the Music Messe right after in Germany, myself and Kat, to play again.
Frankfurt, yes.
Yes. And then Sheila was there again. And so when we went in that kind of situation, there were even fewer female musicians over there because it was, you know how it is.
Absolutely.
It's a little bit less at that time.
Yeah.
So we gravitated to each other again. And we got to know each other a little bit better, all of us. At that time, she was going to be Prince's band leader for a new thing that he was going to do, which was right after the Diamonds and Pearls project with that group. She was going to be the band leader. He's always open to female players.
Yeah.
Being, he's like the United Nations of everything in his band. Black, white, female, male, it doesn't matter, just want everything. Basically, she took a package, and gave it to him on our behalf. And that's how it happened. And ironically enough, Sheila did not end up doing the gig with him.
Interesting.
In the end.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that was totally her choice, but for whatever reason it was ironic that way. And I ended up going up there by myself, not with Kat at the beginning. So it was a little crazy, but it was great.
Well, for people to understand what the NAMM show is, it's the National Association of Music Merchants.
Yes.
So it's a convention that's about over 100 years old.
Yeah.
And these manufacturers, distributors, retail store owners, artists, all, converge here at this convention center, and they meet and they talk. It's a majoring network place. So the fact that you were here networking with Sheila E., it's amazing how that led you to the importance of that relationship.
Absolutely.
With Prince, what was Prince like to work with musically? How did that challenge you?
That would be an understatement. He is a complete challenge. I love him. He is a guy to me who is a perfectionist in a world where perfection doesn't always exist. So there's always going to be a knocking, So I won't say that he's never satisfied. He was pretty much, and we had some pretty good bands with him, but he was pretty tough. He was a cat who liked to control everything, including the musical notes. I mean, everything, the space. If we used to have 5 members in the band, he would say there were 6, and the 6th member is called silence, or space. But he's right about that. That's the fundamentals of funk.
Yeah.
It's not about everything going 50 miles an hour. It's about that space too, and just letting it just gel, and do his thing. He's tough. He's also a lot of fun, but he's tough. I think if you can work for him, you can work for anybody.
Well, that's his standard.
His standard
always high.
Was exceptionally high, and the thing about it is, I think that if you work with him over a certain period of time, you can't help but have that rub off on you. And sometimes it's not good, but it is what it is, because then your expectations become really high too.
Right.
And when you do things, you expect people to, get it. Come on,
Absolutely.
let's go.
Absolutely.
Come prepared. Boom, boom, boom.
Did your jazz background and study help you in Prince's situation?
I think it did a lot, and I think one thing that really helped, I had an idea when I came in early. I always try to be a little bit different, or try to bring something a little bit different to what somebody's doing, especially if I'm coming in replacing somebody who's great.
Yeah.
Like the bass player you had before, Sonny T, absolutely a monster, man. That whole group, from Diamonds and Pearls band, from Michael Bland to Sonny T, Levi, everybody that I had in there, it was just a very, very, very tight organization, monster players who knew his material from top to bottom. So when I came in there, I didn't really know his material. I wasn't really at that time, you know, a Prince fan. I was playing all kinds of stuff. I was aware of his stuff, but it wasn't on constant rotation in my house. And he wasn't a bass player at that time that I was trying to copy or listen to or wanted to do that style, because he does have a particular style. There's no question that the Minneapolis sound is the Minneapolis sound. It's a particular thing. But that was interesting. To say, I could keep going, Dom.
I'm sure you can. So from after Prince, how did Jeff Beck get into the picture?
You know, they called me. Actually, that was my buddy, Narada Michael Walden.
Oh,
what a sweetheart,
prince
right?
of a person.
A sweetheart.
Yeah.
A man of light. Yeah. He recommended for me the job, and I thought it was really nice of him because we had never played together before.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. That was great, and I just got a call. We were doing a band at the time. We were doing myself, Kat Dyson, and Cindy Blackman. We had a little trio that we were backing.
Beautiful.
This female singer, actress. And we were doing all the morning shows in New York, and in LA we were doing all the shows because she was doing the promo for her record. And they called me during that. Just like his manager called me and was like, can you come now, you know, to London, because that's where they're based. And they kept calling, and at first I was like, So I said, okay, I think it'd be fun. And the ironic thing about it is we were talking about before being prepared for stuff. You know, when it came to Jeff, it was the same thing. I really didn't have the time. I was on something else. Didn't know a lot of his material offhand. And I was in New York, and they called me, and I think I got a tape. The only thing that they gave me was the show that he did at Ronnie Scott's. Okay, or maybe they didn't give me anything. I think I got that or something. So I had to figure out what I was going to do. So I had to transcribe that entire show, the bass parts, in my hotel room in New York without a bass amp, nothing. just a little ghetto blaster or whatever I had. I can't even remember what I was playing it on. Some paper on my bass. And I mean, you do what you have to do.
Absolutely.
And that's what I did. And I felt like I nailed it when I went in there. But, you know, I nailed it from listening to this perspective from the previous bass player, not necessarily what maybe the actual real parts or, you know, fundamentally what I learned later where the space would be.
Right.
You know, but I did the best that I could to try to, you know, because he was in a hurry. He was getting ready to go on tour right away. He was like, we were very, very busy for the first 2 years with him, just constantly.
So you had to make it happen. You have to really know your instrument. So all the preparation that you did before has led you to these situations to be successful at it, because when you get there, you make it happen. So exciting.
I think that is true, because I don't think that in a lot of these situations that anyone would have the time to try to, you know, pack it all in at that time. You're going on what you already know. Absolutely.
Organizing all this here. You know, a lot of the sessions is about the business skills that are needed to maintain a career. You've done this incredibly well. So how do you organize the business part of your career?
You know, that can be complicated and overwhelming, especially if you don't have a team. You know, I don't necessarily have a team of people, so I tend to take care of everything myself. And when it comes to business, for me and my perspective, not only does business mean, you know, taking care of your business, maintaining your job, maintaining your instrument, maintaining your reputation, having your, you know, when you go and take the job, when you accept a job, you're 100% in, and that means that you bring 100% when you come.
Right.
To do that. It also has to do with taking care of yourself business-wise, financially. There's all kinds of sides to it. I try to go all around that. I try to teach some of that stuff too, Dom, because I believe in the financial empowerment of the musician and the artist. I think that it's really important, and I think that it's one of the things that we don't always get taught. We got taught everything else, how to spend money, but we don't get taught what to do with it. And I think that our unions and so on and so forth, I think we're a little bit more neglected than, you know, actors and some other artists in industries who are maybe a little bit more protected or a little bit somewhat educated, a little bit more educated from their unions or their, you know, whatever they may have as their source. I just felt that we didn't really have that as musicians and artists. We just kind of go by the fly, and, you know, you find a lot of peers that just live for today.
And they have found unsuccessful direction because of not having that plan. But you really have a great...
Totally, but here's the mistake that they make too, some of them, I think. You know, they have those younger years where they get those tours, you know, when they're 20s and 30s, they're doing great, they did all those things, but they spend through the money, they don't get smart about it, and then when they're in their 50s or a little bit older, nobody's calling them anymore, maybe, or the situation's changing. It's more of a dire situation, and they wish that they could go back, and they just wish they knew, wish somebody had told them. I've had so many people tell me, geez, you know, it's so great to hear. I wish somebody had told me that before.
Well, you do
because it's not that hard.
You do that, but I mean, you've added a whole other part of your personality and your business that you go out and you give lectures about this here. So
I do.
Fill me in about how you would explain it in an overview about someone protecting their finances or investing.
Well, I think that, first of all, you need to kind of, if you can, live on a little bit less than you need, which is very possible. It's a little bit hard to do for some people in the entertainment business because it's a very focal business. It's very visual. It's all about glamour and jewels and people looking like sometimes they're doing a little bit better than they are. I think it has to do with some self-control. I think the first thing is that you have to look past today. You have to really think about, what am I going to do 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Where am I going to be 15, 20 years from now? I want to be comfortable. And maybe I want to be in a position where I'll play because I want to, not because I have to. You know? And that's going to make my life more creative, and it's going to make me be a little bit more relaxed and just enjoy my life a little bit more. But I think it comes from having discipline. You have to live on less maybe than what you make a little bit. You have to be slow and steady wins the race. And people need to be educated a little bit on how they can use things to their advantages, like 401ks, like SEPs, like IRAs, and like Roth IRAs that people don't tell us about, that we get tax deductions from putting that money in. It's the same thing for musicians. There's all kinds of vehicles that we could use and different kind of things you could do when you have years when you're doing amazing tours and making lots of money. There's plans that you can do to kind of set yourself up for later and, you know, get you through the leaner stuff. I think it's just about knowing how to do it. It's really not that difficult, but we're just not told.
But you mentioned the word discipline. That's a very, very powerful word.
And musicians have discipline. This is the thing. We have some of the majorest discipline in the world. So practice 24/7.
Is it that they don't direct it towards the finances? That same
I think
discipline?
they don't know. I just think that it wasn't implemented sometimes young enough in them to know that that's somewhat, almost equally as important as the discipline or the practice that you're putting in to your playing. You know, there's a lot more things than just music that gives you balance. For me, anyway, I need more than that. I think sometimes it's a wonderful thing, but I want to have symmetry and balance in some other areas, so that it allows me to be a little bit more creative. But I just think that people were not aware of it, and they didn't understand how important it is. And it's like an example. If you don't have an example of somebody in front of you, painting it out and going, look, here it is. Take this amount. See if you do this very small thing for 20 years. Look what you're going to have. 20, 30 years later, in the power of compounding interest and all these other things that you can do that you're not thinking about. Instead of everybody's taking loans out and making everybody else rich because they're worried about their FICO score, and they're taking out more loans and they're paying off cars. It's incredible. Even some of these car payments, like $500 a month, some of these people are paying for car payments for 20 years. I mean, if you put that money away, it would be an incredible amount of money. You're just making the car dealership rich, but that's okay. There's little stuff like that, you know.
So that materialistic value can really work against you, where people want to be seen. Who was your mentor? Did you have an example that you were able to look at to find what you've developed?
You know, it just came over time. My parents were pretty good with it when I was younger. I started putting in a retirement fund probably when I was in my 20s. You know. So, and I don't see a lot of my peers doing that sometimes. They didn't, but again, it's not because they can't, they're not able to. It's because nobody told them to do it and what could happen later. So I'm not so sure, Dom, that it was anybody in particular. I think it's just books that I read, things that I did, and I just have a penchant and a love for finance. It's one of the other things that I found out later in my life that I really like to do along with music. But I didn't realize that when I was 17, you know, and they were saying, okay, choose what you're going to do for the rest of your life right now. I wasn't able to come up with anything but music at the time, so that's what I stuck with. But I love finance. That's one thing. If I wasn't doing music, I probably would have done something in finance, you know, so whether it was analysis or I don't know, something.
Well, you have that kind of a mind that.
Yeah, I like it. I really
yeah.
like it. And some people, I can understand there's some things that are simple for people that they love, and I cannot stand. I don't have the patience for it. It's just right over my head. Some people are like that with finance. Could care less. They just, whatever. Just let me spin, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But, it's what you're comfortable with.
How do you find the balance between artistic, empowerment and the business side? How do you balance those things?
I think it's really tough if you're talking about the music business.
Yeah.
It's really tough today because it's changed. Again, I think we're underrepresented in a lot of ways. Like, for instance, if we're talking about business and artistry, what's happening with, everybody thinking that they are just entitled to have your record without paying for it? There's just this this wave of this new thing that's like, I'm not going to pay you for your music, Well, it's like we're entitled to it. So we went to the show, great show yesterday for Yamaha. Patrice Rushen was playing with Sonny Emery, John Patitucci, Lee Ritenour. It was amazing. But there's a bunch of guys sitting there with cameras like you guys have. And they're not even watching the show, but it's up on a pole, and they're not with them. And they've got their little iPhones or whatever on the top of the thing, and they're just taping the whole thing. Again, it's like this is an entitlement thing that you feel like you're entitled. And where the royalty rates are right now, I mean, in terms of digital downloads, in terms of, Napster, Rhapsody, iTunes, that I think is tragic. Who set that rate? So when you're saying business, I think we're in a weird time right now, and I think we're underrepresented in terms of that royalty rate too, with what's happening with that. I don't think that it's fair. We have an understanding now that you can't make money from records. You have to be the 1% to make that money. The only way, this is what I'm hearing now, that you're going to make money in music now is if you play live. That is it. Because that's the state of the business.
But it's unfortunate with Spotify, no one's really the artists are not making money off of the amount of listening that is going on.
Totally.
So as it's changed, playing live, I had this talk with Vinny Colaiuta, and he got very, very passionate about just the fact that it's changing that much, and it needs us to take control to bring it back.
I think so, yes, but nobody's doing it, so I don't understand, why the mechanical royalty rate never changed, or all this crazy stuff, especially that. Why are these rates so low? Who set them?
How can that change? People listening, could they be inspired to do something? What can they do? Or what can we do? To make the change? We've got to get involved. I don't know if it involves government. Definitely involve unions at some point. But I don't know if the musicians' unions are even the ones. It's going to have to be the writers and the performing societies. BMI, ASCAP, SOCAN. I'm wondering what all these guys are saying about the rates. I think that they would definitely have to get involved in it. Absolutely.
But I thought I heard something was happening, but I mean, that was a few years ago. I haven't heard anything from it since. So I think that that's pretty sad. So to kind of answer your question, I think it's a little bit difficult because there's more variables than there were before. So I think, first of all, if you don't play, it's very difficult for you to make money in this industry the way that it is right now. You got to go out and play. Sell your CDs, sell your music that way. You can still get promotion from other things, and I'm just talking about the harder working ones, because there's always going to be the 1% or the 5% that have the backing. That are all over radio, just like they are now, for whatever they want to promote, and they're all over television, and they're making gags of money, and it's not an issue. But for some of the rest of us, I think it's a challenging time. For
the majority,
yes.
For the majority. In closing, and you can imagine, we have thousands of people that watch these artist series for the sessions. What guidance could you give them for them to achieve what they want to achieve in the music industry?
I would say the most important thing, which is what I always did, and which has taken me from the seedling to even where I am now, and watching all the changes in the industry, the changes in everything, and still dealing with it. I think that you have to do it because you love it first. And if you genuinely love it first, it loves you back, and I think it just takes care of all that other stuff. We're the guys who starve for music, for what we love. Why? Because we love it so much. So I think that love for your instrument, the love of the music, that has to be there fundamentally, because that's what drives us through, that's what gets us through all the craziness. And all those few times where you're questioning, should I be doing this? Yeah, I should be doing this. Because that happens in every industry anyway. And that's, I think, something that's important for people to understand. No matter what industry you're in, if it's music or whatever, there's jerks on every job. There's challenges everywhere. I mean, it just is life. you know? So, I mean, there's going to be challenges everywhere, but you got to love what you do. That's going to get you through everywhere, and that's going to get you through all those little points, and you're going to turn around like we all do and go, wow, I can't imagine all the things that I've been so blessed to be able to see just because I decided to be a musician one day. All the places we've seen, all the beautiful people, and the healing that we've done, because the reality is we're healers. We're traveling healers. We heal people. Music heals people. I truly believe that it does.
That is absolutely beautiful. You know, you are articulate as a person, you are articulate at your instrument, you are totally a wave maker, you are a role model at the highest level. On behalf of the Sessions, Rhonda, we thank you so much. You are absolutely
thank you guys.
beautiful.
I think you guys are amazing, and we're so happy that you're here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.